Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and I welcome all of you to. I'm going to sort of like call these end of the month sort of videos kind of like kind of like an open meeting because we've got a lot of things to discuss. So I'm gonna like try and just like get myself comfortable and because I feel like it's a good idea to do these sort of like meetings, feeling as comfortable as you could possibly be, because feeling comfortable puts you at ease. Like half the time, I imagine when you're at meetings, you have to like sit up and you have to like, so like squeeze your anus so tightly that it looks as if you're holding in something desperate, and everybody sort of like looks around, just going like, everybody kind of knows it's there, and your mouth almost shrivels up to like that of an arsehole as well, like this. You just lie back, chill, and you know what, just let your shoulders down a little bit. It's not necessarily bad manners, but only just don't draw attention to yourself. I found out that through what I've worked out, especially when I was at work and other places besides, is that as long as you're not making a complete ass out of yourself, then there's absolutely nothing to worry about. I'm saying ass now. I'm turning American, I swear it. It's fortunately enough that the diet, for the most part, is, well, not exactly replicated, I suppose. So I suppose there's that. So, what exactly is it we've got to discuss, ladies and gentlemen? Now, throughout this last month, you guys may have already known that I have already surpassed the 1/3 barrier towards getting to our 1,000 video target. And technically, I'm recording this video on February the 25th, where we still got like a few days left of February. But there's some little things I kind of like wanted to talk about and go over, just little bits here and there that will sort of like, well, I want to like transition into the month of March as smoothly as possible, and get all trained and get all things running. And I say the word transition for this reason, is because tomorrow is Friday, I will have exactly 9 weeks as of tomorrow, as far as I'm aware of, 9 weeks left of being in work, because that's when my contract expires on the 30th of April. What's important to recognize about this, ladies and gentlemen, it means that 9 weeks to more or less get myself another job so that I can transition into it with the minimum of fuss. Because I like the idea of things running smoothly. I like the idea that I can continue earning money, and it's the sort of thing that comes natural. And I can continue to make my videos how I see fit. That's never really been an issue as of this, as far as, production around here goes. What is sort of an issue is time, ladies and gentlemen. Simply put, there are not enough hours in the day. Now, the only real things I can really see myself getting around this is that, as opposed to the 58 hours I'm working at the moment, I could get a job elsewhere that maybe pays a bit more, and I could get to do less hours. Because in reality, that's what we'd all love to do, is to work less and earn more. It is sort of like the wild glint in everybody's eye that they secretly want, but never really want to like admit, because there's something kind of like indecent and almost dishonest about saying stuff like, of course we want to be a little bit lazier and rewarded a little bit for our laziness. But is it even laziness that we're getting rewarded for? Because you know what, it's because people have a way of taking it for granted that all work, no matter how trivial or meaningless, has a sound purpose in our world. I mean, we look upon somebody else doing a disagreeable job, and we think that we've solved things by saying that the job is necessary. You know what? Being a janitor, for example, is sometimes hard work, but it's necessary that we must keep the streets and the cities clean. You know what? Working in the sewers is frighteningly unpleasant, but we need people to work in the sewers so that our pipes don't get blocked up. There are many other professions like this out there that are equally useless but serve like no purpose just because somebody decides that somebody's got to do it. We see a man, for example, cutting down a tree, and we somehow believe that it's necessary just because he's using his muscles and he's been employed by the council. Yet it doesn't necessarily occur to all of us that he may only be cutting down a beautiful tree just to make room for a hideous statue. I believe it's kind of like the same thing for my line of work at the moment. I earn my bread by keeping places clean and making sure that nobody succumbs to sickness from COVID-19. The staff working at the establishment I am currently working at, or any of the customers who come in and lay their fingers on anything that they can touch. I make sure to just do these things rigidly so that it's in the interest of everyone that everybody is safe and nobody comes away sick or injured. I've been in this job for over 7 months at this point, and not one person who works at this place has succumbed to sickness yet, which is remarkable in many ways, but that's just part of the job, just to keep people safe. Because if fatalities were slightly more than one, I'd say that'd be a big issue, no doubt. But fortunately, because they can rely on me to go in 6 days a week, then there's no real need to be worried at all, because they know that it's what I get paid for, to keep people safe, and it's all part of the job. It really is. It gives you a different sort of sense when you realize the logistics of exactly what you are doing to help in this battle against COVID-19. It's a small thing, but small things lead to very big things, undoubtedly. Now, getting slightly back on track, because I feel like I might have gone off a little bit of a different video altogether. We are beyond the 1/3 mark, that's true. We are 9 weeks away from, unless I find something in the 9 weeks, I'll be made redundant. Well, again, this is still very much up in the air because of the map to lead us out of lockdown. But what exactly is it at this point that I need to do more? Because also during this month, I have done exercise at least one hour every single day whenever I can get a spare moment, which there aren't many nowadays, if you've probably already noticed. There's also been wild sort of things going on I've made into videos as well, is that sometimes I'll make videos about me doing my exercise regimes. Other times I'm making videos because the season of Lent has begun earlier on the 17th, and I've been doing videos where I read from the Gospels, and I read from the Old and New Testament, and then I give my thoughts afterwards, almost as if we were in some kind of service, as it were. And maybe that's sort of like that's how I like to look at it, as though I am providing a service, because through many months of doing these sort of readings myself in mass, it gives you a kind of like a sense of humility, knowing that there could be somebody out there, perhaps you watching this video right now, who might possibly be lost or somewhere in very dark places in life, and you might need this more than probably you might think. And it's something I can definitely do, much similar to the job I'm doing at the moment. There is something I can do to stop it, and I won't hear anybody else say again that there is absolutely nothing that I can do. It is a very clear, case of ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country. And while I might be putting that as a slightly over-romantic patriotic term, because patriotism isn't necessarily something that's like in my lexicon, you might say, because I've used it very little in the last number of years. But it's doing things for other people. That's how I like to look at this anyway. It's not necessarily like patriotism or anything like that, like socialism, nationalism, nothing like that. It's keeping if I keep things simple. But the problem with that, ladies and gentlemen, is that I'm not necessarily the best in the world at keeping things simple. I don't just call a rake, for example. I call it a miracle of, what was it, like 17th, 16th? Probably they were probably invented as far back as ancient Rome, for all I know, but a marvel of garden-based engineering or something. I don't know. Because to that end, ladies and gentlemen, and maybe this is something I should have mentioned in a previous video that I released on Facebook, I'll get to that in a second, is that I have started to begun production on a manuscript which will be my very first book. I call it a book. It's actually an anthology book, which is a book containing multiple short stories. And the book itself is going to be entitled The Final Metro, because that is the first story of the book. And there's going to sort of be either 10 or 12 short stories in this book. And they all tackle very interesting sort of looks into stuff like life, the 21st century industrialism, conflicts of the mind, conflicts of interests, money, death, an identity crisis. And there was also sort of want to be a secret little 13th little chapter. It's not really so much a chapter of the book, but it's sort of my opportunity to talk to the reader without, having to make reference to any, well, sometimes making references to things, but an explanation as to what exactly I've written this book about and what exactly I've done this for. Because, well, one of the things I have had in mind to put into this is very simply the fact that, and I've used this phrase quite a bit during some of my readings over the last few days, is that I do not know when Judgment Day is coming, but based on previous experiences in my life, it might come tomorrow. It might come within a week. I've been in a situation where I've had to face my own Judgment Day once before. And I like to imagine, whether it was through pure luck, coincidence, or even by God, that my time was not to be on that day. I was not ready to leave this world yet. So whenever that time comes, I've got to be ready for it. And the only way to be ready for it is to cement my legacy on this world now, because I might not get this chance again. Now again, you might be looking on this sort of analogy as sort of suggesting that the only reason I'm doing this at all is out of fear. The fear of being forgotten, because technically human beings are not forgotten about at all. If we are dead and we turn to ashes, or we are particles in the atmosphere, we are technically still a part of this world to certain extents, and there's no getting away from that. We are here. Perhaps the very air we're breathing in once contained particles of people who were living 4,000 years ago, for all we know. Unless, of course, it's now in the ozone layer, or possibly even further up than that. But there's no reason to suspect that they're definitely not here among us. We are here among every other person on this planet, as far as I'm concerned. We all exist on the same planet, therefore we are still here. Therefore, we are still here, and everything else is still here. This planet is still here, for example. Now, sort of it's gonna have to go over a few revisions, I reckon, just to try to at least. It's very difficult to sort of explain, but fortunately, I have purchased a number of books over Amazon that are, because my dad was saying that if I was going to write a stuff about industrialism or conflicts of interest of things in the 21st century, then I would have to have something like a double associate's degree in sociology or stuff like that. Well, obviously I don't, but that does not mean I absolutely cannot try, and to that end, I've invested quite a number of time and money into stuff that is going to aid me in this education, because I love to learn and I'm always constantly learning, and this is not what I'm after. This is my brother's copy of Lord of the Flies. Don't know exactly what on earth he even gave this to me for anyway. But to find a starting point, I've employed some books like Richard English's Story of Modern War, and I'm only up to like about 2 chapters into it, where they talked about Karl von Clausewitz, who's said to be the pinnacle man to discussing anything at all about modern war, despite the fact that he died in 1833. But if that's the starting point, then there's definitely a lot more to go into there. Then there's stuff produced by Frederick Dodson, in particular, creating his I think this is like his 5th book in the series, or whether or not this is just something very, very specific, called Essays on Creating Reality. And this is going to even be a part sort of like of one of my books, is that somebody is faced with the very real possibility that not only is he writing something, is that he is creating life. He is an animator in many ways. He brings things to life through the medium and power of words. And that sort of thing scares more people than you might think. The fact that they have power at all. And with great power also comes great responsibility, as the saying goes. And that's also something that I think frightens me a little bit about the fact that I'm actually doing this, is that it could literally turn out to be that not only could my stuff get published, but it would catch on, and people would start going, hang on a minute, there's something in this. Something we may not have seen before, but I think he's touching on stuff that we might have never seen before. That is possibly longer, I hope, more than anything, that long after I'm dead, people would be talking about my books. I would love for that to happen. But in order for that even small possibility to happen, then I've got to have something to show, and I'll have, whether or not I get this whether or not I submit my manuscript off to a publisher or an agent by February of next year, I at least want to have some kind of result before I turn 25, I suppose you could say. So that gives me, what are we on to now, like just 23 months basically to get the final Metro into publication, into syndication. Because what many people might not realize is that one of the great benefits I have of being on social media, and one of the great benefits I have of, doing things as a gifted, I suppose, graphic designer, is that I could do things on my own end to spark interest and things generally worldwide. Getting in contact with people, hitting the ground early, ask questions, find stuff out. That's what I've got to do. I've got to apply myself so seriously into what I've got to do, is that I will not only gain information I need, mostly from books, but there are also like other resources on the internet. But I like doing things like reading from books, because that was what it was like when I was in my English lit classes when I was 18, is that you don't just stick a laptop in front of everyone, you have to read the source material. Moreover, in fact, actually, could you imagine what would happen if that 50 years from now they would be putting a copy of the final Metro on an A-level syllabus for kids of 18 having to read the things I wrote about when I was only 23. That would be very, very bizarre, to say the least. But that's kind of like the intention, really, is that, especially to reach out to kids and that who were interested in stuff like modern society and our civilization. there's I know this whole sort of like part of this video is sort of like gone off the rails again to talk about the final Metro, but it's an ambitious one of mine. I'll give you that. It's an ambitious thing I've done. What's even more ambitious, however, is the fact that I am now, before I would, you know how I would just do like reaction videos and stuff like that, I'm trying to go further afield. I'm trying to make videos that are far more, you know, talkative. Stuff like, I mean, stuff like, you know, like PewDiePie and Luke Alexander. Luke Alexander, I'm going to absolutely say this right now. I've been looking for so long exactly what sort of like person I would want to sort of like if I wanted to do anything except listening to music, I would want to follow in the example of any one of these guys, and Luke Alexander just kind of like ticks every single box in my opinion. He knows what he's talking about, and he puts it, he lays it down on the line, and for a kid who's just 20 years old, he knows far more than I think he's letting on. And I gotta tell you what, this guy already knows far more than certainly I would have. He knows more than certainly I would have ever had the balls to say. Mostly because I reckon the things I would say would cause a few people to say, wow, okay, that's very interesting. And you know, because there is one video in particular I'm writing a script for, because I want this to sort of like be the first video I do in the style of a Luke Alexander video, because there is one video that I have wanted to talk about for the last 3 weeks, and it makes me, it is one of the most conflicting and one of the most polarizing things I've ever seen in my life. And that's why I have to talk about it, because there are a lot of things I disagree with, and a lot of things I kind of like want to set the record straight about about the world we live in, because there are certain things I kind of I recognize some things that are brought up in that video, and there are a lot of things that made me realize that, well, I've been surrounded by them for so long, and I never once thought about standing up to them. There's a lot of stuff like that, and I feel like it will almost like be me setting myself free by finally confronting and saying the things I've been wanting to say for years. That's, well, hopefully by the time it gets made, I should be able to tell you guys what it's about. Now, speaking of, this is the sort of thing, this is like the part of the video where I kind of want to talk about exactly what I want to have accomplished by the end of March. Because for the most part in February, I've continued with like plans for like how I kind of like wanted to make certain like reaction videos for the next couple of months. And moreover, I kind of like want to spend the whole of March making almost all of the scripts that I'm going to be using for the LA inspired videos that are going to be released. It's going to be quite difficult, because for the most part I'm suspecting of getting, by the end of March, at least 25 of these scripts ready. So that's possibly on averaging at least one a day. And that's going to present more problems at first sight than it might seem, because, well, just to begin with, the length of what it could come down to these videos. I mean, editing is not really going to be an issue. If I wanted to make something that, you know, just had like 5 seconds of a cutaway gag like they do on Family Guy, I could have done that years ago. But you know what? Those sort of things aren't really my style. If I wanted to make a serious point, then, you know, comedy is not necessarily the thing I think is the best to sort of like, it takes away from, it takes you away from the immersiveness of the atmosphere or the messages you're trying to convey in a video. That's kind of like, and that's the thing I've always, I feel like sets me apart from a lot of other people who do this, since I started in 2018 is that I want to make it between, I want to make the video about the music. I want to make it about what you came here to listen to. That's what I wanted to always do. I wanted to keep things focused, and I want to keep things about what is actually happening. And I know fine well, more often than not, that revolves in me going into these long stories about things that actually do touch upon my life, but I suspect are not necessarily the most interesting in the world, but they're interesting to me because these are the things I reminisce about when I think about stuff like this. It's a new. It has what's referred to as neurological genesis. The best sort of songs that I've come to recognize now contain neurological genesis in literally spades, and I'll go over maybe in another video where I'll probably be talking about it again anyway, exactly what neurological genesis is, because it's a fascinating concept on its own. It's a beautiful word in many ways as well. Well, 2 words, I suppose. So if we're gonna average like one sort of like scripted video a day for the whole of March, then, well, it seems like a good way to spend some time anyway. But the problem is that these are gonna be long. They're gonna have to go under revisions. They'll also, among other things, the editing is not gonna be an issue. It's just, it might be a little bit tedious, and there might indeed be quite a lot of stuff to cut out or try to like rephrase, or there's going to be more work going into it. But then again, that's kind of the whole point. If you were to stick on a video by Internet Historian and it was just the historian just sitting in front of a computer just talking into the camera and talking into the mic, that doesn't make for exactly a very compelling or a very interesting sort of like... If he was just reading from Wikipedia, that wouldn't be very interesting, now would it? I wanted to go beyond that. I want to do stuff that's like informative and stuff that is, well, how I wanted it to be, because I don't really consider myself to be that funny. Sometimes I'll say stuff that will literally astound everybody in the room, and I do mean everybody, but that's just not really me. And I'll put my hands up and say that comedians must go to hell and back just to make sure that their stuff, has an impact. That's all I'm going to say right there. And finally, just before we conclude this open meeting tonight, ladies and gentlemen, for what's going to be coming up in March, the exercise thing about, well, to be honest, it sort of like starts really from when Lent began on the 17th of February, is that this is officially 10 years since I first gave up meat for Lent back in 2011. And just to show how much much farther I'm going this year, is that I've given up meat, fish, crisps, chocolate, like cheese, stuff like that. I've had literally one drink this entire year out of the 55 days we've had yet. I've had all that going on, and I don't miss them. I don't miss the things I've given up, because I'm getting by. The things I am eating right now are just much better. There's so much more fruit is coming into my system. It's just, I didn't realize how good these things were before, and how bad the things I gave up really were in comparison. And I don't want to just stop now, ladies and gentlemen, because we are now 8 days into the season of Lent. Very soon we'll be a whole quarter of our way through this, and then we'll be halfway through this, and then we'll be 1 week away, and then it will be Easter Sunday. And whether or not I really want to sort of like go back, the problem is that if I just, and this is a problem that I know vegetarians probably must face with a lot, is that, especially for those who've just recently decided to start eating fruit and vegetables and stuff like that, is one, it's sometimes you don't even save money by doing this lifestyle. Second is that sometimes you're almost reduced to having like the same things over and over again. Not always, but for the most part it kind of feels that way. And finally, you just kind of like miss the meat and the fish and stuff like that. It's a problem. It's a real problem. But so I think I'll tell you what. By the time Lent comes to an end, I might even abstain from eating meat and fish just to see how long I can go without really missing it. Because that would be a very interesting thing. If I could get through the whole of Lent and then all the way through Easter up until the day of the Ascension, which that would be, if I get from the end of Lent to the end of Easter and the Ascension, that would be 80 days of going without it. And then I don't know whether or not it's like 3 weeks after this is the coming of the Lord, where the Lord comes down with tongues of fire to bestow on the heads of the disciples to speak the languages of the earth so that they can translate the Bibles to others. I'll have to. I've done that, covered that story so many times before, so I should be able to remember it. But again, for the most part, that's just. That's just me sort of like just trying, and also again the hour of exercise I'm doing a day is amounted. Because I really started doing this on the first day of Lent as well. And here we are, 31 days to go, and I reckon if I don't get a 6-pack in 31 days, I'll sure as hell come close to doing it, because I'm able to now to do 100 sit-ups a day, but today I was like the fatigue and the pain from yesterday was overcoming, and then just to like move forward get into position was hard work. So I'm gonna like take a rest from that for maybe today and maybe tomorrow as well. Doesn't mean to say I can't do other types of exercise as well, but for my own safety, I think I'll just like keep it easy and learn to just not go overboard with it, you might say. So I think we've just about covered everything. So like the things that have happened in the last month, the things I have looking forward, ladies and gentlemen, that's what this should be all about. To look forward and to not worry about what came before, because we always have the chance to do better again. So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you've enjoyed this month of February. And March is just around the corner, so let's get ready for it.